folks, my name is Janaki.
And this is Madame Bathsheba.
And together we are Catomancy Tarot. So today we're doing a What's in My Basket. This is, we just reached the end of February. So this is kind of like my version of a monthly wrap up, a what's up in Janaki's Tarot Land video. And we've got an overall vibe that's been happening for me at least, and as you can probably tell from the title, the tarot vibe in Catomancy Land has been a little bit indulgent. So the decks I've been using or been reaching for, or the kind of overall vibes, it's been February, so it's a little bit romantic. I know there's a tag going around that's my romantic decks, and this is tangential to that. Some of these decks are kind of more romantic, but they're a little bit decadent. They're quite indulgent. Um, they're yeah. If you're watching this, maybe you can comment below and tell me what you think the vibe is. But I'll go ahead and I'll show you the decks I've been working with this month, and they all seem to be a little bit fancy. Um, a little Some of the decks here are some of my like I've got a couple of my unicorn decks that I've been using a lot, and I've just been feeling things that I want to feel a little glam. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and before I muddle this intro up any further, I'll go ahead and show you the guys I've been working with. But wait, before I show you guys that, I wanted to show you guys my new hat, which just came in the mail. What do you guys think? I'm a paranormal investigator, don't you know? Also, I forgot to add that at the end of this video, like I do, I think it's going to be a regular part of these What's in My Basket videos, is I'm going to do a little sample reading so you guys get to see not only the kind of like decks I've been using this month, but also how I've been using them. So if you're interested in that, stick around till the end.
All right, so first off, I think my main criteria of the decks I've been working with this month was would it look good against a backdrop of red silk? If the answer is yes, then it's part of the vibe. So the first deck I'm going to show you is a new addition to my collection, and it's this little vintage French number called Les Tarot Celtiques. So I found this, I don't even know how I found this, but it's a French deck from the 90s, I believe. And well, how I found this deck is I watched a movie in January, and it's the like 1996 fairy tale, A True Story. I think that's what it's called. I'll correct myself if that's not it. But it was a movie from the 90s all about like are fairies real in the Victorian times, and it had like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and like Houdini and like some theosophists, and it's such a classic from my childhood, and I was watching that and I was like, wow, I need a fairy deck that matches that vibe. And I couldn't find a fairy deck that I actually liked, and I looked at like all of them. And then I somehow stumbled upon this one. I found this on Amazon, and it shipped from Germany, and it was only like $30. But the cards are really beautiful, and they have these like really big, intricate borders that I love. And I think this box is one of my favorite tarot boxes. It's really weird. There's no magnet, it's just paper, but I don't think tarot boxes get enough credit. There's been times where I've wanted a deck just because the box is so good, and this box is so good. And so this is a really interesting and unique deck. All of the majors are taken from the sort of the Celtic pantheon or different Celtic mythologies. Some of them are like Celtic gods and goddesses. Some of them are from the Tuatha De Danann. I'm really new to new to Celtic stuff, and I've just been having a really good time. But it is a really interesting deck. It has some keywords in French, and then reverse keywords as well. And so the majors are in this white color, and you can tell this is the Empress because it's number 3. And then all of the they have their own astrological correspondences that don't map onto the usual ones. They're doing their own thing here. And then for the minor arcana, they get really confusing, and there's no way to kind of know which one's which. So I had to, they're just listed by numbers in order. So I had to say this is the 9 of Earth here. And I've written down the names of the trees. So if you're interested in this deck, I can do a full walkthrough and show you how it works, but it's actually quite intricate and complicated. Each of the 4 suits represents one of the seasons, and then we've got different creatures for each of the minors. So here's some more majors, but for the water suit, we have undines. We have sylphs for air. We have salamanders for fire, and then we have gnomes for the earth suit. So it goes along with the kind of theosophical associations. And this deck is like printed on like heavy watercolor paper. It's unlaminated. And so each of the, in addition to each of the suits having a like elemental creature correspondence, as well as a season, each of the, like all of the 5s will have the same alder tree. And so all of the 5s represent alder, which is one of the, if you're familiar with the Celtic tree calendar, I believe it's called Ogham. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. But they also have the corresponding thing like Ogham characters on there. So it's like really complicated and all in French. But it looks like it's so magical to me. The fairy realm seems like it's like complicated and has its own rules. And this deck feels like you have to do a little bit of work to understand what's going on. But the art is really, really beautiful. I do love the keywords, and I can make out most of them. You know, destiny, melancholy, esoteric initiation, solitude. Like it's fairly legible. And so, yeah, I've been really... this deck has kind of set the tone for... It feels like, you know, the borders make it feel like you're in a expensive French perfume shop. Yeah, and so, yeah, I was really enchanted by returning to this fairy movie that was like very influential. And now I have this super cute, very esoteric fairy deck. So that is Les Carrick Celtiques. You might still be able to kind of find this one. It's available. It's out there. And yeah. And if with any of the decks I'm showing today, I don't think that anyone's made a full walkthrough of this one. So if you'd like me to make a walkthrough of any of the decks I'm showing, just comment down below. So we've got that deck that kind of set the tone, and it kind of made me think of what are some other kind of indulgent decks, or that kind of like decadence of you know, I'm thinking like gold borders and stuff like that. So I went ahead, one of the decks that's been on my wish list for quite some time, hello in the reflection, is the Dolly Tarot. And this is a deck that, yeah, has these beautiful gold borders, meets the test of does it look good on red silk? I think so. And it's very dreamlike. It's very pretty. It feels a little bit glamorous. I don't love Dolly as a human and a historical figure, but I really love, I'm just completely enchanted by this deck. And it's a really good reader. It's, yeah, it feels like, I love the sort of soft swirling brush strokes and the color palette and kind of the way all of this older European art is kind of incorporated. So this was another deck that I felt was kind of like very luxe and indulgent and kind of decadent. Yeah, look at her in her garden. So that's the Dolly Tarot, and I've been using this one and having some fun with doing some readings for folks. So along those lines of, you know, cards that have sort of gold borders, I'm really on a kick. I love cards that have, I'm a sucker for it. I don't love the kind of like shiny holographic golds, but I love a good border. And so this is my Golden Rider, and so this is another one of those decks that feels really special. It feels it's one of my great treasures, and I love the sort of bright poppy colors. So yeah, this has been, I use Rider-Waite Smith, it feels like less and less frequently, but when I do use it, this is the copy that I reach for. I just, yeah, it's a forever fave, and it fits this kind of like indulgent vibe that I've been feeling. Yeah, I don't know, February, it feels like an especially tender month. It feels like a month where you're supposed to kind of like, I don't know, put on silk pajamas and eat chocolate in bed. And so that's kind of what I feel like I'm going for a little bit. Along with another kind of deck that has, yeah, one of my all-time favorite decks of all time. I've made this little pouch recently, and that is the Catomancy Tarot. And I think the pouch goes really nicely. And so this deck was my unicorn deck for years and years, and it took me about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years to find a copy. And I've recently found I found a backup copy, guys. So this was a deck that I always felt a little bit too precious to reach for and use. But now that I found a backup copy that was a little bit cheaper than the copy I originally bought, and it was in really good condition. So now I have one to, keep it secret, keep it safe, and one that I can use and not feel bad about messing up. And that's, I don't know, if you have decks that are really precious, sometimes I find it's a little bit frustrating because it feels like it's hard to kind of use them. And I love this deck so much, and I hadn't been using it because I was being too precious with it. But now that I've sort of secured a backup, I've been doing a deck study with this. This is probably one of my favorite cards in the deck. And yeah, I've been having a really good time. I did some readings with this deck for a friend, and it's really enchanting and really exciting to read with. I think it's probably the most beautiful deck ever made. And yeah, it's one that I've been working a lot with recently, and I love the sort of the intricate Persian miniature painting style, borders, and the gold sets it off so nicely. And I've just been, yeah, I adore this deck. I think it's got some of my all-time favorite cards in it. Like, this Fool is epic and so beautiful. So yeah, this deck is my my ultimate. I reach for it when I need like really big, really powerful readings. It feels like it's got a like a weight to it. But it also feels, it just feels so special to like be able to use it. It's like, yeah, it's a total fantasy. So that is the Kazanlar Tarot. And yeah, I adore it. And it's, yeah, so I have a few more decks that I've been using that have that kind of gold border. One of them is the Agorov Tarot, which is a Pyotnik deck from 1992. That's been, oh, look at that devil. So this is it was made by a Russian artist, and so all of the images are kind of in this sort of Russian painting style. And this is another deck that, those gold borders look great on red silk. It's one of my prized possessions, and just feeling really glamorous. And it's such a good reader. It's a great storytelling deck. Like, I love this. Like, he's it's the 8 of coins, but he's kind of like hitting all of his targets, So it's there's some departure from the RWS, but it's really a great readable deck. And it's been fitting my vibe. So that is the Agorov Tarot. And then the last deck that I'm going to show you that has the same kind of like gold border action going on is the Abyssal Tarot. And now we're going to do a alert for some nudity, because there's a whole bunch of nudity in this deck. So be warned. But this deck, look at that fabric, that texture. It's it's so lush. It's so decadent. It looks so good on red silk. I know that's a weird criteria, but and it being February, this feels like a very emotional, a very romantic deck. It's all underwater photography, and it's extremely moody, and I just love it so much. And I've been using this deck in some relationship readings, and yeah, if you stick around to the end, I'm going to do a little bit of a sample reading, which is how I like to wrap up my, what's in my basket this month, is do a little sample reading so you guys can see not only what I've been using, but the types of readings I've been getting up to. And so, yeah, this one I've been using it in some sort of relationship readings for myself and others, since that's kind of like a big theme of this month for some folks. And I just adore it. And this is a deck that I feel like I get it out at night, light some candles, get out my red silk, and that's the best way to approach this deck. And I love it. It also has some titles of the original artwork on the side, so I feel like that always adds kind of another layer to using this deck. But that is the Abyssal Tarot. Which has been really quite fun. And then let's see here. I've also been another deck that feels very extravagant, and this is the one that it's, in this beautiful velvet bag. But this is the Mysteries of the Black Madonna deck. It has these like really beautiful, intricate gold borders. It feels very lush, very decadent. I also want to point out that a lot of the decks I've been using this month are kind of like my most treasured and my most expensive. And so that feels very indulgent to me. It took me kind of years and years to kind of get to a place where I felt comfortable, like spending that kind of money on myself and something that, a lot of folks might say tarot's frivolous. And I know here, you guys understand, you guys get it, but it took me a long time to kind of be okay with allowing myself to kind of have really nice things. And so I feel like this month I've just been kind of like trying to soak that in a little bit. It's been a little bit of rocky year, and so I've just been feeling really, really tender with myself, and so kind of surrounding myself with like my most beautiful objects sometimes really helps. And this is a deck that feels like deeply, deeply, deeply magical to me. Yeah, so that's the Mysteries of the Black Madonna. And then another deck, if I'm honest, I'm very honest about the main deck I've been using all month, I've pretty much only been using this one. There was a time where I was just feeling so tender, and like doing really big, really heavy readings was like more than I could manage. And so instead I reached for this guy, which I've been obsessed with recently, and that is the Dragon Tarot. So it also has these kind of like decadent green and gold borders. and it has these like beautiful soft paintings, and it just feels really it feels really gentle. And like for a while this month, like I was just feeling too tender to really like be able to take really big readings, and so this deck became like a really cozy companion. It feels I don't know, it feels, yeah, it feels like an extremely cozy, comforting deck. And for a long time, I was pretty much exclusively using this deck and pairing it. This is maybe a weird pairing, but I was pairing it with Your Wise Animal Body, which is the new Serpent Fire Oracle deck, which is kind of like very, very psychedelic and graphic. And it's mostly font and really simple images. But for a while, all I could really do was like pull these cards alongside my my dragon tarot, and it's a bit of a weird pairing, as you guys can see. But I really, it was really doing something for me for a minute there, and it just felt it felt like all I could handle for a little bit. And yeah, this deck is kind of a bunch of techniques for nervous system health, and so I've been trying to kind of like get a handle on that, and so I've really been enjoying this deck a lot. And then I've just been the genre of fantasy, which this deck kind of falls into, is kind of one of my, you know, cozy safe spaces. And so after I got this deck, I kind of went on a wormhole trying to find out the perfect fantasy or sci-fi deck, because I realized I loved this deck so much and there didn't seem to be any good like my kind of fantasy decks out there. And so it sent me on this wormhole where I scoured the internet for all of the fantasy decks, and I didn't like most of them. There's one vintage deck called the Fantasy Showcase Tarot that was made in like the 80s, but it's one of those decks that's a, what do you call it? Every card was made by a different artist. And so I have a mixed reaction to those kinds of decks. What are they called? Like you know, the collective artist decks. There's a word for it, I'm forgetting it. But anyways, the problem with that deck is that there's like, you know, a quarter of the cards are absolutely stunning and I love them. And then a quarter of the cards I like actively really, really hate. And then the rest were just like, didn't have any strong feelings. And so that's a vintage out of print deck. And so if it's an out of print deck, I really have to love all of it to kind of like take the time to hunt it down and pay what, you know, you never know what you're gonna be able to get one of those guys for. And so I was like, if I actively hate some of the cards, I'm not gonna even bother. But I eventually found this number. And this is a Russian deck, and I found it from a Ukrainian Etsy seller, and it has a really weird box. It's just paper, but it opens from the side like this, and so I've been using the ribbon to tie it down, because it's a really weird box. And if you, I don't read Cyrillic or Russian, and so if you do, let me know. I'm pretty sure this title translates to the Magic Tarot of Fate or something along those lines. I have no idea when this deck is from. It doesn't have a date on there. I've done some Google translating to try and find out more about it, but I can't. But I love this deck, and I feel like fantasy is also one of the definitions of indulgent, because sometimes we just need to live in our fantasy worlds. And this deck is a cute size. Like if we compare it to the Dragon Tarot, which is a little bit bigger than standard tarot size, it's like quite small. And so I'll zoom in just a little bit here so you guys can see it a little bit better. And we've got a cat visitor. We've got a cat visitor. So this is a very, very pulpy, excuse me, cat, so rude, very pulpy deck. Like it's giving me like 80s fantasy, 80s sci-fi. I love the colors. Everyone's everyone's like in this like fantasy dreamland. Everyone's like gender expression in this deck is like science future warrior princess. Like everyone's just fucking ripped. And like nude. There's so much nudity in this deck. I kind of love it. And it's real wacky. And I absolutely adore it. Look at this devil card. And it's okay that I can't read it, because like I know the numbers, and then you see this and you're like, oh yeah, that's a devil right there. You know, but I just got this deck in, and I love it so much. I haven't seen anyone use it, but I just really, really, really adore it. It's so weird. I do hate this Fool card. I think this is like the Joker. I hate it a lot, but this is the only card in the deck that I actively hate. The rest seems to be filled with just like this kind of like action adventure, fighting monsters in the nude, you know, tree women, you know, there's like all of these great monsters and, you know, battles and wars going on. We've got our, you know, motorcycle man. And so all of the, look, we've got this unicorn deer as our Ace of Cups. So good. And so this deck is like readable to me because you've got the number and then you've got the element there, and that's kind of all you need. And look, it's a little bit queer. It's a little bit like interspecies romance going on. It's just so fun, and I love the colors and that unicorn. I mean, come on. It's so fun. It's so much fun. And so I feel like fantasy is one of those genres, especially for me, that feels really, really indulgent. And this is just a complete fantasy world. And you're probably thinking, but there's no, you know, this is the suit of air, so there's no swords here. So, like, how do you even read this deck? And my answer would be, you just, like, maybe you need a deck that tells you how to, you know, get along with wolves, or, you know, defeat space aliens, or like what do you do if you want to be a snake woman? You know? And that would be this deck. This card I love. It's very frontline titties of the fifth. That's a deep cut Gideon the Ninth reference for any of you queer sci-fi nerds out there. Um, but yeah, this feels like a deck I want to reach for if I'm just like off in a fantasy land, and I love it so much. I'm showing you like all of the cards because I'm like literally obsessed. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. So that's the I'm pretty sure it's the Magic Tarot of Destiny. And it's like very papery. It's not laminated. But I love the size. It's so cute. It's a new very indulgent favorite. And then we've also got another deck that I've been buying more decks than I should. And that's also part of the indulgent vibes going on, is like I've lost some battles with my self-control, and sometimes you just need to treat yourself, and this has been a month where I've just been treating myself, and I think that's okay. And so one of the things, I'm an old school goth girl, like, yeah, definitely. And I've seen some tags going around about all of my goth decks. I think Wesley over at his channel 22 Zines. And then also BiBi at Pure Red Velvet did the goth decks. And I'd love to do a VR to that eventually. But that kind of got my gears whirling on like what is the perfect goth deck out there. And that led me to this one. It's a majors only deck from the 1990s. It's the Gothic Tarot by Layla Wendell. And if we're talking about like perfect tarot boxes, I love this box. I think it's so beautiful. I love the cover so much. I love the title. This is very much out of print, and I was lucky enough. I found out about it, and then it popped up in Facebook Marketplace, and I could not believe my luck, and I just had to go for it. And this box is up there with this one, just in terms of like how beautiful these boxes are. I can't get over it. And so, as I said, this is a majors only deck. It's photographic collage of like cemetery photography. So let's see, it also comes in this box that has the foam in the bottom, so it makes it feel like it's like a precious piece of jewelry. So here's the title card, the Gothic Tarot. This was I have the third edition, which was printed in 2003, but I think it was originally made in 1998. I think Layla Wendell had a brick and mortar shop in New Orleans, but I think she passed away a while back. But she's a well-known author of a lot of books, and the cat has returned. So let's take a look here. And they are very shiny. It's basically printed, it feels like just photographs. So it's the cardstock is extremely glossy, so apologies for the glare. And so it's just the major arcana, and it's taken from photographs of cemeteries with some kind of like collaging happening on top. And I think it's so beautiful. And I think this is the ultimate goth deck. And I'm so enthralled by this. And I think that goth energy is super indulgent, perfect with red silk. very decadent. I love this. This is the lover's card is the picture from the box. But I guess this is the bigger picture, but I love that card so much. And this, yeah, this feels like my ultimate goth. A lot of the goth decks feel either a little bit too, I don't know, cheesy, which can be fun. Like, I'm not knocking it. I think I want some cheesy goth decks too. Or they're really pop culture-y, like the New Wave Tarot or Gothmancy, which are great and look very cool, but I'm just not into like pop culture decks for whatever reason. So this just feels like my ultimate goth deck, and I can't believe I found this one. I'm feeling just so lucky. And I love it so much. I'm thinking about rounding the corners, just because some of the cards in the copy I got, the corners are a little bit damaged already, and I just want to kind of protect them, so I think trimming them might help that out a little bit. I went ahead and I purchased the Graven Images Oracle. Is that what it's called? It's Meg at Rose Honey Ritual showed it on her most recent video, I believe. But it's a photographic oracle deck taken in cemeteries, and I think it would be like the perfect pairing with this deck to kind of use alongside of it. So you have like the majors, and then you have a lot of little oracle cards to go along with it, and I think it's my perfect my perfect goth world. And I've been listening to so much old school goth music. I've been listening to so much like Susie and the Banshees and Bauhaus and Echo and the Bunnymen, and like there's that new ghost hunting show on Netflix called Lockwood & Co. that has like the best goth soundtrack, and it's been so much fun. So if you need a little spooky show, yeah, you should watch it. But yeah, this is the Gothic Tarot that also just feels wildly indulgent. And so there's this deck, and the last deck I'm going to show you. This deck I just got in. It's the Daydreaming in Situ, which is a collage oracle deck, and this deck is also kind of ushering in, you know, when you can tell the vibes are starting to shift. I think I'm shifting away from this kind of like indulgent tarot vibe to getting really into collage decks again. Like the Gothic Tarot is a collage deck. I just made a video of the Runners of the Sun, which is a collage oracle deck. So the vibes are starting to shift, and we're getting back into collage vibes. But this deck I wanted to include here just because it feels, the layering and the texture in this deck makes it feel very indulgent, and you've got a lot of like art historical references in here, and yeah, definitely part of the vibe. And I love the borders and the formatting in this deck. It's really beautiful. I think it's a highly underrated kind of top tier collage deck. So yeah, that kind of concludes the part of this video where I show you the decks I've been working with. Another thing that I almost forgot to add that I think might be a fun thing to do as part of the What's in My Basket videos is also talk about decks that I don't have that would also fit this vibe, and I don't necessarily need to go out and buy these right away, but I just as a way of like, I see that deck out there, I see you, and I think it would fit also. I think I know this deck is kind of a hard to find one, but one that's very similar in vibe is the Russian Tarot of St. Petersburg. I think that would also fit this. Another one, instead of the Kazanlar, maybe the Tarot of 1001 Nights. That might also work out well for this. Yeah, it has like really great, beautiful borders. I would love to kind of trim the whites down to the image border. I think that would be a fun project. And then lastly, another deck that has been on my wish list for quite some time, but I didn't end up getting it because of the whole shipping kerfuffle with the UK right now. But that's the Rose Alchemy Oracle deck. It's got these lovely gold borders and then photographic images of roses. I think it's beautiful. I think it would totally fit this vibe. I really want it, but shipping is expensive and also not functioning at the moment. So, if someone had a copy in the US, I would consider getting it, but I think I gotta wait. But yeah, those are some other decks that I think would fit. Are there other decks you can think of that would fit this overall vibe? Yeah, let me know in the comments. And now I'm going to go ahead and make some space. And I'm going to do a little bit of a sample reading for you so you guys can see what kind of readings I've actually been doing this month. So hold tight. Alrighty, so since we're wrapping up February, I thought I would show you how I do relationship readings. So this will be a little bit of a general reading, a community reading. And so I'm going to be using two decks. I'm going to be using the Abyssal Tarot and the Dolly Tarot. And I'll show you how I do these relationship readings. And this is a way for you to kind of like see my reading style. And it's also an opportunity for me to kind of like practice doing like general community readings. So in this reading, if you want to kind of take a moment to pause and perhaps reflect a little bit and think about maybe there's someone in your life. It doesn't have to be a romantic partner, but someone who you've, maybe there's been some kind of like issues that have come up recently, or it can be, doesn't even have to be a relationship with a person. It can be a relationship with a project or an endeavor or an aspect of your life. So just take a moment to pause and kind of think about what would you like this relationship reading to be about? A relationship between you and someone or something else in your life. So I'm going to pull a couple cards here. And then we'll go ahead and add in these other cards here. So this, the reading that I'm doing is kind of like, has been adapted a little bit from a relationship reading spread that I learned from Naha over at 22 Teachings. So the core of this spread I've kind of gotten from her, but I've kind of expanded on it a little bit. And she teaches a great tarot course. So as I'm shuffling up, maybe take a moment to kind of tune in, tap in, and here we go. Sorry, my frame here, these are kind of bigger cards, and so they don't all quite fit in the frame, but we'll do our best over here. So this pile of cards over here kind of represents you. This over here represents the other area of life that you're having a relationship with. These guys are kind of what's the problem, what's the crossroads, what's the thing that's coming up now. And down here we've got some advice for ways to move forward. So let's take a look at what's coming up for you right now. So the way these cards work is these two cards are kind of your more kind of exterior, what you sort of what appears to you and others, and these cards are kind of your more interior state, what's a little bit more private. So it seems like you've got the Six of Cups and the Five of Wands here, along with the Wheel of Fortune, which is a really pretty card with that dove there. And so maybe this is a time when you're feeling a little bit tender, a little bit nostalgic, wanting things to be like they used to, and feeling like maybe there's been some changes recently, and maybe you're kind of like holding on to the way things used to be, and internally maybe this is causing a little bit of conflict, a little bit of disruption, and you're maybe really trying to kind of hold on to an idea of how things used to be, and maybe feeling a little bit uncomfortable with some change. And then if we come over here and we take a look at what's going on with the other thing you've got going on in your life, and we've got some big cards here. So we've got the Emperor and the Hanged Man. And let's take a look here to see what we've got Judgment. The little title here is Rustle of the Sea, which is really beautiful. I love that. So that means you've got three big major arcanas going on. So the person or a thing that you're in a relationship with right now has some really big energy going on. So on the exterior, it seems like maybe this person is, or this part of your life right now, it feels like it's really in control, or it has a lot of authority in your life. So maybe this is someone who feels like they have everything together, or they're kind of very structured, or they're just, maybe this is someone who has or something that has a little bit of power over you, but maybe on what you're not seeing as much, what's kind of they're keeping to themselves a little bit, is this feeling of pause, or feeling of suspension. Maybe they're just they're they're not moving along perhaps at the pace that they'd like to be. And then it also feels like this is a card that's got some big judgment vibes. So maybe they're in a stage where they're about to kind of like maybe take things to a new level. Maybe it's a new level of commitment to whatever they've got going on, but they're going through something now where they're on the brink of kind of getting to a different level, a different stage of things. And I realize with relationship readings, I've never done like a general reading. I usually have a little bit more kind of like, it's hard to do a reading where you're not sure if this is a person, a thing, or whatever. So forgive me if this is like a little bit general, but this is just really for you to get an idea of how I've been using cards this month. And so let's take a little bit of a peek of what's been going on between you and the thing you're in a relationship with. So we've got the Ace of Wands and the Ace of Pentacles. Whoa, guys! That's really cool. So that's a lot of like beginning and energy, right? So it's a seed and like growth at the same time. So really, things seem like they're just getting underway here, which is really kind of fun. Yeah, so maybe this is someone who you envision like growing with, or taking new steps, or starting out new ventures with. And that seems like a good sign for that, right? Yeah, definitely. And so if we kind of take a look now, I'll scooch these up a little bit so you can see down here. I've got kind of 3 cards, and this is kind of like what's working well, what's kind of not working out so well, and then what are some next steps you can take. And this card down here I pull is like overall vibes or advice. So let's see what I think I swapped those. I usually do this card as like, what's something that's not working out so well? And we've got the, let's see here. This is the 8 of Wands, even though it looks a lot more like the 7 of Wands. So it looks like maybe there's been some like conflict. We've got some figures with some kind of like battle energy. So maybe our Emperor character over here is, is battling a little bit, or is maybe a little bit headstrong. So it's feeling a little bit combative, and maybe and I'm also seeing over here. Perhaps you've got a little bit of like internal strife. So there does seem to be a little bit of like headbutting that's going on here, which isn't always great. But what's going well here is you've got the 2 of Wands, and so we've got the Ace and the 2 here. So maybe what is going well is you're both able to kind of like share a similar vision for the future. Or you're able to kind of engage in some kind of like joint planning and figuring things out together. And so that seems like that would be some good steps, some ways to kind of like clear the air a little bit, is to take some kind of more practical kind of planning of this kind of like shared concern of growing and building something together. And then we'll take a look at this where to go next. We've got the King of Cups, which is a lovely kind of like final card for the reading. So maybe next steps is to kind of build this kind of like big emotional container, a space to kind of like maybe talk about and share some feelings. I love this little fish that's just hanging out there. Yeah, so maybe there's taking this relationship to, this feels like a very mature and wise, a wise outcome going on here. So good for you guys and all of your emotional maturity. And then you've also got 10 of Pentacles overall. And so that feels like we've got the Ace here. And then we've also got the 10, which is kind of the conclusion. So that feels like that's where things are headed. So growing from the Ace all the way to the 10. So it feels like, overall, it feels like this is a pretty good reading. So that's one way I like to do relationship readings. I hope this was fun or educational, or if not insightful, or perhaps it didn't resonate with you, which is okay, because it's a general reading. But thank you for joining me on my tour of my Indulgent decks today, and I hope you enjoyed this little spread I've got going on. So I will see you guys all next time. Bye for now.